Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I am Clementine, and as always, I am Super Saiyan, but never mind that. In this video, we're going to take this early 50s Hammond church organ amplifier, rip out its innards, beat it apart with a hammer, cut down the baffle and some 1x12s to make a solid pine speaker cabinet with 1-inch finger joints cut with a hacksaw. Then after some various types of upholsterizing, hardware installation, some wiring, and a quick combo to head conversion, we get this Alnico 4x10 Piggyback Bassman Cab. I will show and explain this entire process in detail, including miking her up proper for the tones. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, stay tuned!
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Today's video is brought to you by GuitarBuildingTemplates.com. Templates to build your guitar accurately since 2002. These guitar templates are CAD drawn and laser cut with 1/4-inch MDF for accuracy and durability. Every stage from CAD to cut is done in-house. So if you want to save hours building guitars, go to GuitarBuildingTemplates.com. And viewers of the channel can apply coupon code HeavymetalATC15 for 15% off at checkout. Thank you, GuitarBuildingTemplates.com, for sponsoring the channel. Let's get back to some content. So, this is a Hammond HR40 tone cab. This is the companion cabinet that goes along with a Leslie. In fact, they use the same controller, which I don't have, so I can't use this amp as is. I got this off of Facebook Marketplace for almost nothing because nobody wanted it, but it has 4 Alnico 10s and an Alnico 12 in it, as well as a 2-channel amplifier, all tube, with a 4-foot tall reverb tank. But against everybody's wishes probably, and to the heartbreak and dismay of some, I'm taking it all apart and using it to build a bunch of different stuff. As you can see, it still has early 50s caps inside of it, so I wouldn't be able to use it as is anyway, and it will not work without the controller. This amplifier will be used to make several other amplifiers in the future, and I'll find some way to drive this big 4-foot tall reverb tank, which also has some oil inside of it, which I've been told will give you cancer. Either way, I pull all the speakers out of here, take it outside, and start beating it to pieces with a hammer. And somebody might say, oh, well, that's good wood you're busting. No, it's block board with veneer on it. I was hoping it was good wood, but it's not. It's just cheap production stuff, even in the 50s. But due to my pack rat hoarder type tendencies, I will be saving all this wood to use later for templates or something. And luckily the 4x10 and the 12-inch baffles are both 3/4-inch plywood. So once I pulled all the standoffs out of this baffle, I took a set of calipers and figured out exactly how far the speakers were going to stick out from the holes. And I made a mark and squared off the first side, using a table saw with a fence, of course. Then once I had my square edge to work off of, I went around the whole thing doing the same stuff. Took a square, marked it all out to try to get as small a baffle as I can, and you'll see why a little later. But once I got them all marked out, I went back to the table saw and started ripping it down each side. Checked it from corner to corner for squareness, shot some paint on there, and while that dries, I'll start addressing these 1x12s. So when making a finger jointed cabinet, you need to figure out exactly how thick this wood is, and then scribe that down the side and use that to add into your width. And this exact amount will need to be added to both ends of all 4 pieces. Another thing people might not think about is the thickness of 2 pieces of Tolex and 2 pieces of grill cloth also need to be added into the width. Luckily, I found the thick edge of this aluminum flat metal to be just about exactly that thickness. So I set my baffle up there, put the aluminum on the side of it, and then mark that. Get another measurement of the thickness of the piece, add that, past that mark, and then mark that. So now I have the exact measurement for my sides, but the baffle is a little bit wider than it is tall, so I have to go to the other end of the board and mark for my top and bottom. Something I do want to point out is that a factory edge, especially on a board this wide, is not square. Doesn't really matter. As long as you get everything within 1/4 of an inch, it'll work out just fine. We're going to hand cut these finger joints anyway. Embrace the jank. Once I get all these cut out, they're not all the same exact size. It doesn't matter. Nothing's perfect. You can fudge things later. And this right here is a huge testament to that. You don't need any kind of special jigs or tools to cut perfect finger joints or good enough finger joints. Take a ruler, mark 1-inch marks, take a straight edge and then fill them all in. Then mark every other one of them with an X. The top and the bottom need to be the same, but the sides both need to be the same and opposite to the top and the bottom, so it'll fit together like a zipper. Then you simply cut down all those lines to the other mark with something as simple as a hacksaw. Then you take a chisel and you put the angled side toward the middle of the board and move a little bit off the line so that when the chisel walks inward, it won't overshoot. And you knock them halfway out from one side, flip the board over and knock them the rest of the way off out the other side. And even if it chips or explodes or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's all going to glue together fine, and you could figure out some way to fudge it or use Bondo or whatever you got to do later. You just might be surprised at how well they actually do fit together. And you can always go back and hit them with a file or a rasp. I mean, when I did my first test fitting of the entire box, I had one tooth on the back corner that didn't want to accept the other piece. I just hit that with a rasp and it went together just fine. So literally then I just take a paintbrush and some Tite Bond and I start making sure that I get every one of the little flat pieces on every tooth, both sides of each joint, and I clamped it all together for 2 days. It is truly surprising how strong a glued finger jointed cabinet is, but I mean, you have 88 side grain faces glued to each other. It kind of makes sense. It adds up. And because of the way that they fit together like a zipper and hold themselves down, it's going to come out pretty square. But they're nothing close to perfect, being hand cut and chiseled out. But that's not a problem. I just rasp the end off of them, hit it with a high angle plane, and then once I sand it, look at that. Compare that left side to that right side. See? No problem. That's part of that fudging I was talking about. Same thing with the width of the boards from manufacturing. They may be a little wider or narrower as they go. They're not exactly square. You can always just sand or shave that down. It's no reason to give up on the project. And now I'm ready to start rounding over the edges of the cabinet. You can do this with a rasp, but I have a router table made from a desk, so I put in the cheapest, crappiest round over bit you can find. It doesn't even have a bearing in it. It just has a little post that sticks up. And since it's so dull, I run it through the wrong way the first time and then pull it back through the right way. And what I mean by that is there's a direction that the bit is spinning and you're only supposed to force against the bit. But since this is all held so solid, you can go backwards and take off just a little bit and then go back through forward, run it back and forth several times and make sure it's perfect. It's only going to cut so much before that stop hits the side of the piece and quits cutting. Same thing for the corners. You just run them through several times. I thought the corners would bust and act weird because of all that end grain and side grain meeting together, but the bit didn't seem to care at all. And they didn't turn out perfect, but after some sanding, I mean, pretty sweet looking. This one joint has a few gaps in it and a busted corner, but due to internal bracing, Tolex, and corner brackets, none of that matters. This is exactly what I mean by embrace the jank. The small details of a project can make you easily become discouraged, but if you look at the whole thing, it's usually pretty sweet. I mean, this looks great with that baffle in there. So I can go ahead and put the baffle in as far as I want it, mark that from the back, take a straight edge, finalize all those marks, take me some little 1x1s and cut them down with a saw, glue them and nail them in. Now once I have all my baffle braces done, I can go ahead and start relieving them for the speaker baskets because the baffle is so small that the speakers are almost going to touch the edges of the box. I go ahead and pre-drill those and then I'm ready to measure and cut some back doors. Then I lay those up against the edge, accounting for the thickness of Tolex, mark those, and start putting in braces in the back, same way as I did the front. After those are all nailed and glued in, I went ahead and did some corner braces. One final test fitting shows me that everything's gonna jive together just fine with plenty of space left for the Tolex to wrap around the corners. So I drill my back doors and start to the upholsteryficating. And for this, I'm gonna use this Dr. Z looking red Tolex, which is actually my friend Jerry owned a cafe, and these were the tablecloths on all the tables in there, and he gave them to me when he closed the place down, so I got stacks and stacks of this stuff. I'm pretty sure this is identical to that vinyl fabric that they sell at Joann's. It's not quite as easy to work with as real amp Tolex, but it does the job, and it was free. And one good thing about this amp is I'm using corner brackets, which that's like about the only thing I bought for this whole project. You don't really have to worry about your corners at all. They're all going to be covered up. Just hack that stuff on there. Also, you can do Bondo or putty work and then sand the cabinet down before you do all this to make it look nice. And a good way to make the Tolex stick better is to prime everything with contact cement and then put the Super 90 on the back of the Tolex. But I have to say, all in all, I'm pretty well pleased with how this actually came out. And now, here's the reason I made this baffle as small as I possibly could. I'm going to try to cover the baffle with this original grill cloth. So I take this grill and cut the screen out of it. And when I wrap it around the baffle, I have about a 1/4 inch of play in each direction. It is actually so small on there that I had to wrap it around and tack it to the edge instead of the back. But luckily it worked out just perfectly. There was just enough. And luckily it just barely pressed down into the cabinet without ripping loose. And I was able to put in some screws in the back of it and attach my corner brackets. And now for the real star of the show here, these early 50s Rolla Alnico 10s. I will admit I was pretty confused looking at this wiring for a minute because these were wired to be 4 ohms and I need them to be 8 ohms. What I ended up doing was just the simplest thing. I made 2 sets of parallel speakers and then I ran those in series. And that should give me 40 watts RMS at 8 ohms at my jack. So now all that's left to do is throw this thing together. I used the mounting cups from the Hammond's amplifier as feet, and I gotta say it turned out pretty awesome. This would be a good candidate to mount a tube amp inside of it with the control panel at the top like a Tweed, but instead I decided to take my dad's little combo that I modded on this channel a few years ago and turn it into a matching piggyback head. And I am totally stoked at how this worked out. Luckily there was a little bit of grill cloth left over from the lid and these two look just perfect together. And when you have 50s Alnico speakers and spring reverb, you don't miss tubes at all. And to prove that, I got this thing hooked up to a telly, running into a germanium boost and a univibe with a Shure 57 and a homemade mic on it. Let's hear some tones. Well guys, that just about does it for this video. If you found this educational or entertaining in any way, please like and maybe subscribe. You have been watching Heavy Metal ATC. Till next time.